In the journey toward financial freedom, most people skip a fundamental step. They want strategies, shortcuts, and spreadsheets. They want to know which stock to invest in, which side hustle to start, and how to make 6 figures by next year. But few ever stop to ask themselves the most powerful question of all. Why do I want this in the first place? Without a clear, emotional reason behind your financial goals, all the tactics in the world will feel empty. Purpose is what fuels persistence. Purpose is what gets you up when you've been knocked down. And purpose is what turns discipline into desire. When you have a strong enough why, the how becomes possible. The truth is, money by itself is not a powerful motivator. People think they want money, but what they really want is what money represents: freedom, security, options, legacy, dignity, time. That's the real currency. And if you never define it for yourself, you will chase numbers that mean nothing. You will grind without fulfillment. You will hit goals and still feel empty, wondering why it doesn't feel like enough. Because money without meaning is like a boat without a compass. It might move, but it has no direction. Purpose gives your financial journey a soul. Think about the most powerful moments in your life, the times you felt most alive, most driven, most unstoppable. It wasn't because you had a budget. It wasn't because you figured out how to consolidate your debt. It was because you had a reason that made everything else feel small. Maybe you were fighting for your children. Maybe you were climbing out of a situation that had held you down too long. Maybe you had a dream so big it scared you. That's the level of emotion you need when you talk about money. Because let's be honest, the journey to financial control isn't easy. It requires saying no when everyone else is saying yes. It demands late nights, early mornings, self-discipline, and sacrifice. You can't keep doing that just for a vague idea of being rich. You do it because you're chasing something deeper, something personal. That's your why, and if you don't know your why yet, it's time to get quiet, sit down, turn off the noise, and ask yourself some hard questions. Who are you doing this for? What does freedom look like to you? If money were no object, how would your life feel? Who would you become? What would you build? Write it down. Visualize it, speak it out loud. Don't settle for shallow answers like, I just want to be comfortable, or I don't want to struggle. Go deeper. Because a vague goal produces vague action. But when you know exactly what you're chasing, the fire in your gut never goes out. Purpose also acts as a filter. When you have a strong why, you stop wasting time. You stop chasing every shiny new opportunity. You stop comparing yourself to everyone else because you realize, my race is mine. A clear purpose simplifies decision making. Should you take that job? Should you invest in that business? Should you spend that money? The answer gets easier when it's measured against your why. If it moves you closer, it's a yes. If it doesn't, it's a no. Simple, and here's what's amazing. When your actions line up with your purpose, momentum kicks in. You stop needing outside motivation. You don't need someone to remind you to show up. You show up because the mission matters. That's the difference between a wish and a commitment. Wishes wait for inspiration. Commitments are driven by purpose. Purpose also sustains you through setbacks, because make no mistake, they will come. Life will throw you curveballs. Unexpected expenses, failed investments, missed opportunities. If you're only chasing money, those setbacks will break you. But if you're driven by a purpose bigger than your bank account, they will only shape you. Purpose turns pain into fuel. It transforms why me into watch me. It makes you resilient. It makes you relentless. because you're not just fighting for profit, you're fighting for meaning. This is why so many people quit their financial journey, not because they lacked talent or opportunity, but because they never rooted their effort in something personal. They were trying to run a marathon with no finish line. They were saving just to save, budgeting just to survive. But survival isn't enough. You weren't built to survive. You were built to rise, and that rise begins with clarity, the kind that only comes from purpose. Purpose makes your goals magnetic. When you speak from a place of deep conviction, people feel it. Opportunities find you. Mentors notice you. Support shows up, not because you begged for it, but because aligned energy is powerful. It attracts, it creates movement. When you walk in purpose, doors open. One of the biggest lies we've been told is that if we ignore our financial problems long enough, they'll somehow disappear. If we don't open that bill, if we avoid looking at the account balance, if we just keep working harder and hoping for the best, everything will eventually sort itself out. But here's the truth. Nothing changes until you face it. Nothing improves until you confront it, and nothing grows in the dark. Clarity creates power because clarity is the first step to taking control. You cannot manage what you refuse to measure. You cannot fix what you won't face. And you cannot command your financial destiny while living in financial denial. Most people don't have a money problem, they have a clarity problem. They don't know exactly how much they owe. They don't know how much they spend every month. They don't know what their credit report says. They don't know the interest rates on their loans. They don't know how much money is leaking through impulse spending or unused subscriptions. And they stay stuck not because they're incapable, but because they're uninformed. Financial chaos doesn't begin with numbers. It begins with avoidance, and that avoidance turns into anxiety, which turns into paralysis. That's when you feel overwhelmed. That's when you feel like no matter how hard you work, you're still drowning. But when you finally turn the light on and see the full picture, things begin to shift. You can't conquer what you won't look at directly. Clarity begins with the courage to look at the facts, no matter how uncomfortable they are. It starts with opening the envelope you've been ignoring. Logging into the account you haven't checked in weeks. Writing down your debts, your income, your expenses, your habits. It may sting. It may be hard to admit how far off track things have gotten. But that discomfort is temporary, and it's powerful. Because the moment you face the truth, you start to reclaim your power. You stop reacting and start responding. You stop hoping and start planning. You stop spiraling and start building. There's an emotional freedom that comes from financial clarity. Even if the numbers don't look good right now, at least you know where you stand. And knowing where you stand means you know what direction to move. The fog lifts. The fear shrinks. You stop imagining the worst and start working toward the best. Confusion creates stress, but clarity brings peace. It doesn't mean all your problems are solved instantly. It means you've stopped pretending they don't exist. That's the shift that changes everything. Clarity also exposes your patterns. When you track every dollar, you begin to see the truth about your habits. You begin to notice how often you spend to escape, how often you eat out because you didn't plan ahead, how often you swipe the card instead of asking, "Is this necessary?" Your spending tells a story, and until you read that story with honesty, you can't rewrite the ending. Financial breakthroughs don't happen in spreadsheets. They happen in moments of radical self-awareness. The moment you realize that $6 coffee every morning isn't about caffeine, it's about comfort. The moment you realize that shopping spree wasn't about fashion, It was about filling a void. Clarity doesn't just show you where your money is going, it shows you why. Once you have that awareness, you can start making intentional decisions. You can create a budget that reflects your values. You can prioritize what truly matters. You can begin eliminating what doesn't. You can stop living by default and start living by design. You stop being reactive and become proactive. That's when real change begins, when every dollar has a name and every decision has a reason. Clarity also breeds confidence. So many people lack confidence with money not because they're bad with numbers, but because they've never taken the time to understand them. But when you know your numbers, when you know your income, your net worth, your savings rate, your financial goals, you feel in control. You can have intelligent conversations. You can make smart decisions. You're no longer guessing. You're no longer dependent on luck or wishful thinking. You're operating with precision, and that confidence creates momentum. The more you understand, the more you want to learn. The more you learn, the more you grow. The more you grow, the more your financial destiny starts to shift in your favor. Clarity also empowers communication. If you're in a relationship, clarity allows for honest conversations about money. No more hiding purchases, no more silent stress, no more resentment over unspoken expectations. Financial clarity creates unity. It builds trust. It brings people onto the same page, working toward the same vision. When both people know the numbers, know the goals, and know the plan, there's less conflict and more collaboration. Money doesn't divide, confusion does. And when you eliminate confusion, you build connection. None of this is about perfection. It's not about having all the answers. It's about having the courage to ask the right questions. It's about creating a habit of checking in with your finances regularly, not just when something goes wrong, but as a part of your routine. Because when you treat your money with respect and attention, it starts to work for you. The foundation of every financial breakthrough is not found in a bank account or an investment portfolio. It is found in the mind. Before wealth ever shows up in your life, it has to take root in your thinking. This is why two people can start with the same amount of money, live in the same city, and work the same job, yet end up with completely different results. One grows and thrives, the other struggles and stagnates. The difference isn't just in effort, it's in perspective. Your mindset sets the thermostat for your financial life. If you think small, you live small. If you think like a survivor, you stay in survival. If you believe you're not worthy of more, no strategy will ever be enough, because mindset shapes reality, and your internal world becomes your external experience. Many people grow up around scarcity thinking. Maybe they heard their parents fight about money. Maybe they watched bills pile up without enough to pay them. Maybe they were taught that rich people are greedy, that money is evil, or that wanting more is selfish. These beliefs dig deep. They form a narrative that plays in the background of every financial decision. And unless you interrupt that narrative, it runs your life. It whispers, you'll never have enough, even when you get a raise. It says, don't try that, you'll fail. When you think about starting something new, it convinces you to play it safe, even when the risk could change your life. A poverty mindset isn't about your income level. It's about a belief system rooted in fear, limitation, and unworthiness. Shifting that mindset starts with awareness. You have to notice the thoughts you think when you talk about money. Do you say, I can't afford that? Or do you ask, how can I afford that? Do you say, that's too expensive? Or do you ask, is that worth the value it provides? The language you use reveals the beliefs you hold, and the beliefs you hold determine the actions you take. If you believe money is always scarce, you'll act out of desperation or hoard it out of fear. If you believe opportunities are limited, you'll see competition everywhere and collaboration nowhere. But if you believe that wealth is a tool, that abundance is possible, and that money can serve your higher purpose, everything begins to shift. You stop chasing money and start attracting it through clarity, value, and action. A wealth mindset is not just about thinking positively. It's about thinking responsibly and creatively. It's about seeing setbacks as setups for growth. It's about recognizing that every problem is a doorway to a new solution, and every limitation is an invitation to innovate. People with a wealthy mindset don't see challenges and stop. They see challenges and ask, "What can I learn from this?" They don't wait for permission, they create opportunity. They don't fear failure, they use it as feedback. This way of thinking turns ordinary moments into extraordinary turning points. Your mindset also determines how you view yourself in relation to success. If deep down you don't believe you deserve financial freedom, you will sabotage it the moment it begins to show up. You'll overspend, you'll procrastinate, you'll make excuses, not because you're weak, but because your subconscious is trying to protect the identity it has always known. That's why growth requires more than discipline. It requires identity transformation. You have to see yourself as someone who is capable of earning more, managing more, and creating more. You have to see yourself as someone who is worthy of success, not just someone who dreams about it. That shift doesn't happen overnight, but it starts with choice. Every time you choose to believe in your potential, you weaken the grip of self-doubt. And the more you practice that belief, the stronger it becomes. Mindset also determines how you handle money emotionally. If money triggers fear, guilt, or shame, those emotions will cloud your decisions. You'll hesitate when you should act. You'll act impulsively when you should pause. And you'll stay stuck in patterns that no longer serve you. But when you heal your relationship with money, when you see it as a tool, not a test of your worth, you begin to make clearer, calmer, more empowered choices. You stop trying to impress and start trying to invest. You stop buying for status and start spending for value. You stop fearing the future and start planning for it. The truth is, no amount of money can compensate for a broken mindset. You can win the lottery and lose it in a year. You can land a high-paying job and still live paycheck to paycheck. Until your mind expands, your results will contract. That's why mindset is not optional, it's essential. It sets the boundaries of what you believe is possible, and those boundaries become the walls of your reality. If you want to change your finances, you have to change your thoughts. You have to train your mind the way an athlete trains their body. With repetition, with intensity, with intention. Because mindset doesn't just influence your financial life, it creates it. One of the most powerful shifts you can make on your journey toward financial control is learning to pay yourself first. It sounds simple, but it carries a profound message about value, discipline, and self-respect. Most people have it backward. They work hard, get their paycheck, and immediately start paying everyone else. The landlord, the utility company, the grocery store, the credit card companies, everyone gets paid first, and they get what's left over. Sometimes that's a few dollars, sometimes it's nothing. Over time, this pattern sends a quiet message to your subconscious. You come last. And when you treat yourself like a financial afterthought, it affects your confidence, your motivation, and your results. Paying yourself first flips the script. It says, before I handle anyone else's needs, I take care of my own financial future. Before I start spending, I make sure I'm saving. Before I worry about debt, I invest in my growth. This is not selfish, it's strategic. Because when you build your financial stability first, you give yourself the foundation to help others, to breathe more freely, and to move with power rather than pressure. It's like putting on your oxygen mask first on a plane. You can't help anyone else if you're gasping for air. The same applies to your money. What does it actually mean to pay yourself first? It means that every time money enters your life, whether it's from a job, a side hustle, a gift, or a windfall, you immediately set aside a portion of it for you. Not for spending, but for growing, for saving, for investing, for building your future. It could be 10%. It could be 20%. The amount matters less than the habit. Because once you train your brain to see saving and investing as a priority rather than a leftover, you begin to build something far more important than just a bank balance. You build financial muscle. You build respect for your own labor. You build the habit of wealth. Many people say they can't afford to save. They believe they need to wait until they make more money, pay off more debt, or get ahead on bills. But this mindset only delays progress. If you wait to save until it's convenient, you'll never save. Because the truth is, money will always find something to do. There will always be another expense, another emergency, another temptation. But when you commit to paying yourself first, you create a non-negotiable. You remove emotion from the decision. It's not about whether you feel like saving. It's simply what you do. And over time, those small amounts add up. Those consistent deposits become a safety net, an investment fund, or the down payment on your dream. But more importantly, they become proof to yourself that you are capable of discipline and that your future matters. Paying yourself first also protects you from financial burnout. Too many people work hard for years and have nothing to show for it. They live paycheck to paycheck, not because they don't earn enough, but because they never built the habit of retention. Earning is only half of the equation. Keeping and growing what you earn is where wealth is built. When you pay yourself first, you start to build margin. Margin gives you breathing room. It gives you options. It allows you to say no to toxic jobs, to take time off when you need to invest in opportunities when they arise. Without margin, life feels like a constant hustle. With it, you begin to operate from a place of peace and power. There's also a psychological transformation that happens when you pay yourself first. You begin to see yourself as an investor in your own life. You begin to view money not just as something to spend, but as something to direct with intention. You stop seeing your income as temporary and start using it to build something permanent. You stop feeling like a consumer and start acting like a creator. This shift builds confidence. It builds momentum. It builds belief because every dollar you save is a vote for your future. Every investment you make is a message that says, I believe in myself enough to plan ahead. This mindset also teaches delayed gratification, one of the most essential traits for building long-term wealth. It's easy to spend money in the moment. It's easy to chase comfort, convenience, or status. But when you pay yourself first, you're choosing long-term gain over short-term pleasure. You're choosing to build a life of freedom instead of buying a moment of relief. That discipline carries over into every other area of your life. It teaches patience. It teaches vision. It teaches responsibility. And over time, it rewires your brain to prioritize what really matters over what's immediately available. Paying yourself first isn't about deprivation. It's about direction. It doesn't mean you can't enjoy your money. It means you enjoy it with boundaries, with awareness, and with purpose. It means you create a lifestyle that is supported by assets, not just income. It means you create a life that is sustainable, not just impressive on the outside. And it starts with one simple decision to treat yourself like a priority, not someday, not when things settle down, but starting with the very next dollar that comes into your life. There is no path to financial freedom without discipline, and there is no discipline without the removal of what no longer serves you. The habits that silently drain your money, your energy, and your time are often the same ones standing between you and the life you want to build. These habits aren't always obvious. They don't always look destructive at first. In fact, many of them are socially acceptable, even encouraged. But make no mistake, toxic financial habits are like tiny leaks in a ship. At first, they seem harmless. Eventually, they'll sink you. And if you don't take the time to recognize and remove them, you will find yourself trapped in cycles of frustration, wondering why you work so hard and still can't seem to get ahead. The most dangerous habits are the ones that feel normal, swiping a credit card without checking the balance, spending to relieve stress after a long day, shopping out of boredom, justifying every purchase with "I deserve it," or "it's just this one time." These are subtle emotional behaviors that compound over time. It's not just the money that gets wasted, it's the mindset that gets weakened. Because every time you reinforce those habits, you teach yourself that emotional satisfaction is more important than financial vision. And over time, that conditioning becomes your default setting. One of the most toxic habits is impulsive spending. It's often disguised as reward or self-care, but in reality, it's avoidance. It's a way of numbing stress or escaping discomfort. The problem isn't buying something you love. The problem is buying without awareness, without intention, and without alignment to your goals. You don't need to eliminate joy from your life. You need to eliminate the reflex of trading your future for a fleeting moment of relief. Every impulse purchase delays a future investment. Every emotional transaction robs you of clarity. The solution isn't guilt, it's consciousness. The ability to pause and ask, is this supporting the life I'm trying to build, or is it just silencing a temporary discomfort? Another toxic pattern is living beyond your means. It happens quietly, a little more on the rent than you can really afford. A new car that stretches the budget, upgrades to your lifestyle that don't match your income. This is especially dangerous because it creates the illusion of success while secretly breeding stress. You might look like you're thriving from the outside, but inside, you're constantly anxious. The margin is gone. One unexpected bill or life event can knock everything off course. The solution is not deprivation, it's alignment. Living within your means isn't about limitation, it's about creating space. It's about building a life that supports you, not one that traps you. Procrastination is another toxic habit that sabotages financial growth. Not doing the budget, not setting up the savings account, not reading the contract, not asking for the raise. Delayed action leads to delayed results. The longer you wait to confront your finances, the harder it becomes. Procrastination feeds anxiety. Anxiety feeds avoidance, and the cycle repeats. But behind that procrastination is often fear. Fear of not knowing what to do. Fear of facing mistakes. Fear of admitting how far behind you feel. The antidote to fear is movement. Even small action breaks the cycle. Because once you do one thing, review your statement, cancel that subscription, make that payment, you begin to regain momentum. Comparison is another invisible toxin. Social media makes it easy to compare your behind, the scene's reality to someone else's highlight reel. You see someone else's new house, new car, new vacation, and start questioning your progress. But financial destiny is not a group project. The moment you start measuring your success by someone else's timeline, you lose your way. What they have is not a reflection of what you lack. And often, what looks like success on the outside is being financed by debt, pressure, or insecurity. The only metrics that matter are the ones aligned with your goals, your values, and your truth. You are not late. You are not behind. You are on your own path. People are habits too. Sometimes the most toxic influences on your financial growth are the relationships that reinforce poor decisions. Friends who always want to spend, who pressure you to go out, who laugh at your budget or your goals. Family members who guilt you into giving more than you can afford, environments that reward excess and punish discipline. You become like the people you spend the most time with. If you're constantly surrounded by people who don't respect money, it becomes harder to respect your own goals. This doesn't mean cutting people off completely. It means setting boundaries. It means deciding that your future deserves protection, even if it costs temporary discomfort. Eliminating toxic habits isn't about perfection. It's about making space for better choices. Space for intentional living. Space for habits that support the life you actually want to build. Every time you remove a financial behavior that no longer serves you, you create room for one that does. And the more room you create, the more energy you have to move forward. Because success is not just about what you add, it's about what you're willing to let go of. The journey to controlling your financial destiny is not just about money. It's about mindset, clarity, discipline, and deep purpose. It's about choosing to stop surviving and start designing. Every step you take toward financial control is a declaration that your life will not be left to chance. When you know your why, you ignite your drive. When you face your financial truth, you reclaim your power. When you shift your mindset, you change your possibilities. When you pay yourself first, you build your foundation. And when you eliminate toxic habits, you clear the path to rise higher. This isn't just about dollars. It's about who you become in the process. Financial freedom is not reserved for the lucky or the elite. It's available to anyone willing to take full ownership of their choices, one decision at a time.